Hey there, welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 377. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is all the Transformers that I've acquired over the last several months. It's been a while since I did a Transformer-focused video, and part of the reason for that is because my Transformers collection has kind of been winding down. I have been collecting modern Transformers since, I believe, 2005. So we are talking 20 years now of collecting what I call modern Transformers. And my goal when I started collecting Transformers again was I wanted to have all the toys that me and my brother had when we were kids, which was the Generation 1 Transformers, back from like 1984, and I have a lot of them. So in recent years, when they've been focusing on some of like the newer movies, which is not something I'm really interested in, my collection has kind of really slowed. And I really thought it would be near completion soon, but oddly enough, these last couple months has been very Transformers heavy as far as my collecting goes. There have been just a lot of characters that I've been excited to buy. And yeah, I have a lot of them that I need to show you guys before I can put them away on my Transformers shelf back here. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to do this kind of old school. I used to do these videos where I would shoot a little introduction and an outro, and then I would flip the camera around and I'd show you all my figures close up. What I've been doing more recently is I shoot myself like this, talking about my toys through the whole video, and then I shoot some B-roll that I can split the screen and show you the toys that I'm talking about. But that is kind of time consuming, actually, so I think I'm just going to shoot an intro and an outro like I used to do, and then we'll flip the camera around and we'll take a look at all the toys that I'm talking about. So I don't know if there's much more that needs to be said. I kind of just want to get into it. My room here is a real mess. I've got toys piling up all over my desk, all around me here, and all over my chairs and stuff. And I just really want to be able to review a bunch of them so I can put them away. So that's what we're going to do. So let's take a look at my most recent Transformers purchases. So here's the first Transformer we're going to look at. This is the Decepticon Crasher. Now, Crasher is a female, and she transforms into a Formula One race car. Now, if by chance you're new to my videos, I am not going to do a tutorial on how to transform this figure. I'm not going to comment on how difficult it is, because I don't transform any of my Transformers. I buy them for the action figure. I don't really care about the vehicles and all that sort of stuff. I know like companies have tried to make non-transforming Transformer toys in the past, and they never seem to be all that successful, because I think most Transformers fans want their Transformers to transform. I don't really care. Like, I do like that these toys can transform. That's part of their whole deal. And there's something about handling a Transformer that can turn into a car, and it has the extra wheels and stuff all on it, that I do like that aesthetic. But if a company made this toy that looked cartoon accurate and stuff, I would kind of prefer that. For example, I've got some Super 7 reaction figures here. These are non-transforming Transformers. They're much smoother. They don't have a bunch of extra kibble hanging off of them. And I quite like this. This is all I really need. This is why I buy my Transformers. I just want the characters. So having got that all out of the way, let's talk about the figure that is Crasher. Now, if you're not familiar with her, that's okay. She's kind of an obscure Transformers character. And in a way, she's not a Transformers character at all. If you're an old guy like me, you probably remember that there was all kinds of transforming toys available in the 80s. Like, they were at McDonald's, they were at gas stations, they were everywhere. But there was two main brands. There was Hasbro's Transformers, and then there was the GoBots, which I want to say were made by Tonka at the time. Anyway, whatever. So both toy lines, like there was Transformers, there was GoBots. Each of them had their own cartoon shows, and I think the Transformers clearly won out. It had the better quality cartoon, it had the better quality toys, there was lots of different sizes and complex transformations. GoBots tended to be pretty small and simple toys, and even though they definitely have a fan base, they're not nearly as well remembered as, say, Transformers are. So Crasher was a GoBot toy, and in the cartoon, that's where we first learned, I believe, that Crasher was a female. I don't think there was any indication of that on the toy packaging or anything. The toy didn't really look female at all. It didn't have a humanoid face. It just had like a visor and like a kind of a mouth shield. And when the cartoon came out, though, they gave her this like pink face that had like red lips and eyes with like dark circles around them that kind of looked like mascara. So they made her feminine, and they got a female voice actor. So when I think of Crasher, I always think of her as a female. And anyway, so what is she doing here in Transformers? Well, something weird happened. I don't even know how it all worked out, but Hasbro bought out the GoBots brand, but they could only use the name GoBots and some of the names associated with them, like Crasher, but they couldn't use the likenesses because the GoBots were toys that Tonka, or whoever it was that owned them, they just borrowed those toys, like they leased those designs from a Japanese company, and those toys in Japan were called Machine Robo, similar to how Transformers were their own brand over in Japan, and Hasbro just took those designs and gave them a new backstory over here in North America. So even though Hasbro now owns the GoBots, they can't actually make toys that look like the GoBots that we grew up with. Here's a prime example. A little while ago, we got this figure, and his name is Pathfinder, and he is supposed to be the GoBot character Pathfinder, which did transform into a spaceship like this figure does. But as you'll see here in the side-by-side, this looks nothing like Pathfinder. All they did was take the Transformer figure of Cosmos, who turns into a spaceship, and figured, well, he's a spaceship, that's close enough. We'll paint Cosmos blue instead of green, and we'll call him Pathfinder. But they put no effort into making this look like Pathfinder. And they've done that with multiple other GoBot characters as well. So I'm not sure what the legal reasons are that they're able to make Crasher and actually it looks like the GoBot version of Crasher. Like she's got that pink face. She's got the right design, like she turns into a Formula One car, just like the original GoBot toy did. So yeah, I wish we would see more of this. I would love to see all the GoBot characters in the Transformers line. So whatever legal mumbo jumbo they have to do, whatever hoops they have to jump through, I wish they would do that, because I think it's awesome to get Crasher in my collection here. It's a cool figure. Now, it could be better. I do wish it looked more like the cartoon that I remember. Like, I wish it had like the red lips and stuff. This face, while painted to look like Crasher, it's not really sculpted to look like Crasher. They did the best they could, I guess. But anyway, she's cool. I'm glad I've got her. Now, this design, like a lot of Transformers, it's a repaint. So this here is Mirage. He is the famous Transformer Formula One car. Now, Mirage is usually blue and white. This here is a variation of him. But as you can see, when I do a side-by-side, these toys are the same. Their shield on their chest is the same. This kind of like spoiler or whatever at the front of their car is the same. You know, the knees, the feet, everything, even the guns, all that stuff is the same. So it's the exact same figure, except for, you'll notice the head. So Crasher's head is different from Mirage's head. However, this is not a unique head. If it was, it probably would look more like the Crasher that I know. But for whatever reason, they took a totally different version of Mirage, this figure here. Mirage is able to kind of go invisible, and this is the invisible version of him. That's why he's cast in translucent blue plastic. This is an older figure than this one, so they are different. Like you can see, their spoilers are different there. Their legs are different, and of course their heads are different. So they took the head off of this Mirage, put it on the other Mirage, and painted it to look like Crasher. And yeah, I think the results are pretty good. Another thing to mention about this figure is it actually came out, I believe, originally in like 2002, or not 2002, 2022, a few years ago, and I wasn't able to get it. I think it was a Walmart exclusive, and they were very hard for me to find in my area, so I missed out on it, and I didn't think I would ever get it. But fortunately, Hasbro decided to re-release it this year in different packaging. So it's the same toy they released a couple of years ago, but newly packaged and a little bit more accessible to everyone. So yeah, there you go. I think that's all I have to say about Crasher. So these next two Transformers I'm going to talk about together because they came in a 2-pack together. And the 2-pack was very cool looking. It came in this box that features the artwork from the old comic books. The way it opens up with kind of a little Velcro sleeve so you can see the figures inside, and it's got some panels from the comic book along the side of the packaging. It's very cool. If I kept my boxes, I would definitely have held on to that one, but I don't have the room to hold on to all my packaging, so unfortunately I had to scrap it, just like I do with everything else. Now, if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you may have seen me talk about these guys a little bit, so I haven't posted a review, but I did get these guys a couple of months ago, and I did do a video which was my best action figures of the second quarter of 2025. And so these guys, I talked about them in that video. In fact, so this character here, this is, I believe you pronounce his name Xarron. This guy, even though he's kind of plain, kind of simple, I really like him. And this guy, I advanced. I put him on my list of the best action figures of the quarter, which means he is in contention for my best action figures of the year list at the end of the year. However, after I shot the video, I realized that he is automatically disqualified because these figures were technically released last year in 2024. This set was a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, and I didn't pull the trigger when it first went up on Hasbro Pulse. I thought it was maybe a little expensive, and I don't have a big attachment to either of these characters. And if you're wondering who these characters are, you might be thinking this is Hot Rod. Well, it's not. It looks a lot like Hot Rod, but it isn't. It's a character named Flame. These characters only appeared in the UK comic books. So if you were in North America and reading Marvel's Transformers comic books, you wouldn't have come across these guys. Only if you were overseas. Now, you might be familiar with them from maybe some more modern interpretations, or if you've got a reprint of those UK comic books. But back when I was a kid, I had no way of knowing these guys existed. I had no way to access those UK comic books. But I really love getting kind of weird, obscure characters, so I'm not just getting, Optimus Prime and Bumblebee over and over again. So when they can find a character like this that has some ties to G1, but it's maybe not something I'm all that familiar with, this is the kind of stuff that gets me really excited. So yeah, Xarron, unfortunately, he's not going to make my best of the year list, but I really do love this design. His body is pretty much made up as the same body as Reflector, the guy that transforms into a camera. In fact, let me go grab him for a comparison. So here is Reflector or Refractor, whatever you want to call him. But you'll see here he's kind of boxy and stuff. He has the same shape as him. Everything is the same. These little kind of bits on his shoulders, the square, the boxiness of his, yeah, there we go. Turn him around. His shoulders. So those are the same pieces. They're just facing different ways on these characters. The legs are the same in both of these guys. Now, all they've done is they've added a few extra pieces. So where this guy had the clear chest piece, they've changed it up and given him a new chest plate here. Things like the tank treads on his legs, those are actually detachable. So he has the same legs as Reflector, and you just attach these on to kind of give him the appearance that he transforms, into a tank instead of a camera. Same as this gun here that's just plugged in as well. So he's got a few extra pieces and a brand new head sculpt. And for me, it's the head sculpt and it's the unique paint job that really make this guy cool and worth getting. Flame. So this guy, now he's got an Autobot logo, but I seem to think he was a Decepticon, but perhaps, I think he was maybe a Decepticon when they used him in the IDW comic books, but he was a hero in the UK books. I don't know. As I said, I'm not that familiar with these guys, so I might be a little rusty on my details. But anyway, he's cool. Like this flaming red, orange, yellow paint job. Again, it looks very much like Hot Rod or Rodimus Prime. But this figure here is actually using a Megatron base figure. I don't have that Megatron for a comparison, but you know, the fact that he's got this giant cannon on his arm is kind of a dead giveaway. But I think they've done a good job of disguising Megatron here. I don't know what pieces they might have added, similar to Xarron. You know, they might have changed up his chest plate or something to distinguish him from Megatron. He definitely has like a new head here, although even it's a little reminiscent to Megatron, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's a cool figure. I like it. Both these guys are pretty cool, and you know, they are not common characters, so it's fun to add guys like this to my collection. Anyway, let's move on. So here is our next 2-pack of Transformers to talk about. This here is the Autobot Iron Fist, although for this set they called him Fisitron, and this is the Decepticon Carnivac. So these guys came in a fully sealed box, part of the Age of the Primes sub-series, which I guess is kind of like the current sub-series that G1 characters are getting lumped into. And I almost skipped this pack. It didn't feel particularly essential to me. I didn't have either of these characters when I was a kid. Carnivac here, he was one of the Pretenders back in like the late 80s, which means the old toy was like a little smaller, and he was a purple robot that transformed into a wolf, but then he went inside the plastic shell of a biological wolf. They don't really seem to embrace that Pretender idea in modern Transformers, but they have done a lot of the characters and just kind of tweaked them. So now Carnivac is just a robot that turns into a wolf. He doesn't hide inside of a wolf shell. And yeah, then when it comes to Iron Fist, he was released actually in the 90s, so well after I was playing with my Transformer toys. And so yeah, I didn't have either of these guys. I didn't have any attachment to them. It was only in more recent years, and when I say recent years, we're still going back probably 10 plus years ago, back when IDW was publishing the Transformers comic books. They did a storyline called The Last Stand of the Wreckers, which was a really cool storyline. And they took a lot of characters that maybe didn't have a whole lot of focus in the original Marvel comics or the cartoon, and they really kind of elevated them with good stories. And Iron Fist was one of the characters that was the star of the Last Stand of the Wreckers series, and I really liked it. And after reading it, I wanted an Iron Fist toy. But unfortunately, no Iron Fist toy existed other than the original big clunky one from back in like the early 90s. So in order to add him to my collection, I turned to a third-party developer. Now, if you're not familiar with them, they're still going strong, but like in about 10, 15 years ago, they were all over the place because I think Transformers fans like myself were rabid to fill their collections, and Hasbro was taking their sweet time making the characters we wanted. So these other companies, these third-party companies, were making Transformers of the characters we wanted, but they had to use different names, even though the characters were clearly the characters that we wanted. Like, they looked exactly like Optimus Prime, but they would call him, you know, Ultimate Primo or something close, but they were just doing that to kind of avoid getting sued. I really don't know how they got away with it for as long as they did. But anyway, so to get my Iron Fist fix, I bought this toy, and this design actually looks more like the character appeared in the comic book than even this new officially licensed one. So I really liked this toy. I thought they did a really good job of capturing his proportions and his colors, and I really liked this figure. And I kind of thought he was a long shot to ever get an official toy from Hasbro because he is such an obscure character. So I thought, yeah, this guy's fine. This is all I really need in my collection. I love it. So when they were redoing him in this version, I thought, you know what? I don't even know if I like that version as much as the third-party one I already have. But I don't have any version of Carnivac in my modern collection. He is a G1 character, even if I don't have much of an attachment to him. So I thought, you know, what the hell? I might as well. It is kind of... There is something that just scratches in the back of my skull when I have unofficially licensed toys like this in my collection standing in for a character. Even if I decide to keep that other version of Iron Fist out on my shelf, because usually what I do when I upgrade a character, the old version gets boxed up. In this case, I might keep the third-party version out as well, along with this one, and maybe in my head I'll just tell myself they're different characters. In fact, the little one could be Iron Fist, and this guy could be Fisitron, as his package says. Now, why is he called Fisitron now? I don't know, probably legal reasons because of Marvel's character Iron Fist. So all they did was take the letters and shuffle them around to come up with a new name, Fisitron. And yeah, so this figure is cool. I do like it. Like, that face is recognizable as Iron Fist. And as far as like the size and the stature and everything, I think it works pretty well. Like, sure, he's not as small as he appeared in the IDW comic books, but yeah, this is good. And it is a retool of Detritus, who himself was a retool of Hound. So you can see the similarities in these guys. They are very similar. They share most of the same pieces from the neck down, except they did sculpt this brand new head for Iron Fist. So this is brand new. Yeah, he's good. He doesn't have too much kibble hanging off of him. He does have some hollow spots here, but, you know, not the end of the world. So yeah, not too bad. I like this figure, and I am glad that I picked him up. Now, as for Carnivac, he's a pretty cool figure too. He has a new head sculpt as well. Now, he is a headmaster, which means his head pops off and it turns into its own little guy. But anyway, we'll keep the head on him for now. And yeah, I think this is pretty faithful to the original Carnivac design. The colors are definitely spot on. Now, for this figure, they pretty much just took a previous wolf character. So here we have the Weird Wolf, released during the, I think it was the Titans Return era. So they took Weird Wolf and gave him a new head. But otherwise, I think he's the exact same figure. So, you know, they both have that big wolf head hanging off of the back of them and stuff. Whoops. And yeah, it makes sense that they would do that. There's no point in retooling a whole new figure if you've already got a wolf character in your roster, but I do appreciate that they gave him the new head. That's the most important piece as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, this is a pretty cool figure, and this ended up being a pretty cool pack. So there you go. And here we have another 2-pack featuring 2 Decepticon soldiers. This was packaged under the Studio Series banner, but that doesn't really seem accurate because Studio Series are reserved for characters that appeared in the movies. These characters are not from a movie, they are from a video game, Transformers Devastation, which I have not played, so I am not familiar with these characters. But my understanding is that when you play the game, you know, you pick one of the Autobots, like Bumblebee or Optimus Prime, and you have to, you know, slash your way through a ton of bad guys and eventually get to a boss. So in order to have multiple henchmen that you can slash through, they invented these 2 characters, which is just kind of a generic car robot and a generic jet robot. So these guys can be slashed and hacked, and they don't represent any particular unique character. So because I don't have any attachment to them, you know, I didn't play the video game, these are not characters from my childhood, I probably would have skipped this guy. This guy is called the Ground Soldier, I think, if memory serves. Yeah, Ground Soldier, and this guy is Elite Seeker. So this guy's cool. There's nothing wrong with him, but he's just not something I needed. And you can see he's got way too many swords. There was 3 swords in the packaging, which I think it's meant that you can split them up. So you could maybe give him this sword and these 2, more curved blades you could give to this guy. I just dumped them all on him for now. But yeah, I probably could have skipped him. This guy, I also don't have any attachment to, but I just love the Seeker jets. They form a core part of the Decepticon army. Of course, you've got Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp. But when I was a kid, I always preferred the Conehead versions of the Seekers because my favorite Seeker was Thrust. It was the only one I had as a kid, which he's the maroon and black jet. So in my modern collection, I have all kinds of Seekers. I think I'm up to about 20 different ones because there's the 6 originals, plus there's new ones like Red Wing and Hot Link and Nacelle and all this other stuff. So when this guy was announced, I was like, well, I want to get him too. I don't want to have a Seeker that I'm missing. I have to have all the Seekers. So since I had to have him, I got him as well, which is fine. So this guy basically is just a redo of the Conehead sculpt from Earthrise that we've got, like I said, about a dozen times already. So just for example, here is Thrust. So this is one of the Coneheads. They all differ, a little bit. Like you can see this guy's got these little wings down here on his ankles, and the way his wings are kind of plugged into the back of him. So there's some slight variations amongst the Seekers, but basically it's the same mold. So this guy here, his main wings are on his sides of his legs, and I've just got them folded back. I think that's similar to how Dirge looks. But yeah, this color scheme is unique. I like the black and gray, and just that little bit of red there on his legs really kind of bring it to life, give him some color. I like this one a lot. And I also like that kind of cell shading that they did on the cockpit. So you see that little kind of reflection of light that they have painted on there. I believe the video game itself is cell shaded, so that's why they've went with that look. You can see the same thing on the ground soldier on his windshield there, that kind of painted light reflection. So anyway, I've talked about this mold several times on past videos. I love it. It looks great here. This is a really cool color scheme, so I'm happy with him. This guy here, he is based off of Runabout and Runamuck. So here is Runamuck. So you can see they share pretty much, I think, everything other than the head. So everything, the legs, the arms, if we flip them around, you'll see they share the same design. But yeah, this guy, I believe this is a unique head. I actually don't have his buddy Runabout. It's possible that this is Runabout's head, in which case this would just be a straight repaint of Runabout. But I think that head might be unique. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, I like the color scheme. He's different enough that you wouldn't necessarily associate him with these two guys, because this guy's all white. The other one that I don't have is all black. This guy's a nice mix of blues. Looks good. But yeah, I think that's probably all I have to say about this pack. Now, these next 2 figures are new to me, but they're actually quite old. These are 2 of the Technobots, and they were released in 2016 as part of the Combiner Wars toy line. Now, I loved Transformers Combiners. When we were kids, I owned all of the Constructicons, which formed Devastator. I had all the Protectobots that formed Defensor. My brother had all the aerial bots that formed Superion, as well as the Stunticons and the Combaticons. After that, we had pieces from other combiners, but we didn't have any of the complete sets for any of the later ones. So the original Technobots came out in '87, and my brother, he collected them, but he only managed to get 2 of them. He had Afterburner and Nose Cone. So I have some attachment to those 2 characters, but not so much the rest of the Technobots. Anyway, when the Combiner Wars toys were coming out, a few of the sets, the ones that I'm most familiar with, like the aerial bots and the Protectobots, they released those figures as individuals, and you can buy them one at a time. Spend $20 here, $20 there. But for the Technobots, they only released them as a big old box set with everybody all packaged in it together. And I remember seeing it, and I think it was over $200 the one time that I saw it. And I was like, I can't justify that, because not only do I not have a super strong attachment to these characters, but I didn't really love the look of some of the toys. I thought they were kind of lazy repaints. If Hasbro had really put in a lot of money to tool nice new versions of these characters, I would have been more inclined. But mostly they were a lot of repaints. And so I passed. And I'll be honest, I have been kicking myself ever since, because this set is only more expensive than that now on the secondary market. In fact, I saw a sealed box at a toy show not too long ago, and they were asking, I think, $550 for the whole set. So I've kind of assumed I would never own the Technobots in my Transformers, like my modern collection, unless Hasbro decides to release a whole new series of them, which seems like a long shot because, they're not the most popular characters. They didn't appear in the cartoons and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, even though they are currently re-releasing a lot of the combiners, like there's a new version of the Aerial Bots, a new version of the Combaticons. These things are coming out right now. I don't know if they'll get to the Technobots. I hope they do, but I don't know if they will. Anyway, there is a comic shop near me called Giant Robot Comic Books, and they do toy trade-ins, and then they post, the toys that they buy on Instagram, and people always right away say, oh, can I get that? Can I get that? Can I get that? And all the time, I'll look at my Instagram, and I'll be like, oh, that's something cool I would have liked, but then I see that already somebody has nabbed it, and so I never get anything cool. But a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month and a half ago, they posted a big lot of Transformers that somebody had traded in. And for whatever reason, 2 of the Technobots were in that lot. Now, these guys were only available in the box set, so I don't know if the person that traded these in maybe decided to keep their 3 favorites, or maybe the store owner decided to keep them himself or whatever, but they never made it to, to Instagram for me to pick. But as soon as I saw these guys, I wrote my comment, and I was like, can you please hold the 2 Technobots for me? And to my surprise, I got a response that said, yep, we'll set them aside. So I couldn't believe my luck that I'm actually going to get 2 of these Technobots. And they only charged me, they were like $15 or something. So, that's a great deal. I'm very happy to finally get 2 of these guys. It's better than none. Anyway, so this guy here, this is Strafe. And he transforms into kind of a futuristic jet, because that's what the Technobots were all about. They were kind of supposed to be, scientists and futuristic robots and stuff. So yeah, they all kind of had futuristic designs. Now, interestingly enough, this figure, they took the Aerial Bot Air Raid, and you can see the similar designs in his knees there, his legs. Those are the same legs, the same torso, same arms, but they gave him a new head. And then they also tooled new pieces, because this guy's basically just carrying a jet around on his back, but they changed all that up to give him these more spaceshipy pieces. And yeah, you can barely tell. I think if you put these guys on the shelf next to each other, you wouldn't immediately say, oh, that's just a repaint of that guy. I think they actually look pretty different because of the head and the guns there and everything. So this was a pretty successful reuse of parts. So this was a good figure. I like that one. Nose cone, on the other hand, I think this one's pretty weak, because I actually have the original nose cone here. So here is the original nose cone from '87, and you'll see how simple these toys were back in the day. This is him as a drill tank, and to turn him into a robot, you simply folded this around. So those are his legs. They're not separate. He has no knees. These are his arms. So you just fold those out like so. Now he's got arms, supposedly. And you fold this back, and there's his rinky-dinky little head. And when you combined him to make Computron, you folded this in, and this acted as a little peg to plug into the torso, so then he could act as an arm. So yeah, these toys were pretty basic. No movement in the arms and legs. Not a whole lot of fun to play with. So anyway, I was really looking forward to getting an upgrade of this guy. And this figure, I don't think particularly looks like him. The drill tank is kind of lazy. Basically what they did here is they took the Combaticon Brawl, who transforms into a normal, like, earth tank. You can see some pretty recognizable parts of a tank here, and they just repainted him. And they didn't give him a new head or anything. He's got the exact same head as Brawl. And instead of the tank turret, which he takes off of there and puts in his hand like a gun, they changed it up for they stuck a little drill on the front. So he basically looks like a modern day tank with just a little drill on the front. So I think it's pretty weak as far as a drill tank goes, and pretty weak as far as a robot goes. I never thought this Brawl figure was all that good to begin with, and I think it's even worse as a nose cone repaint here. So this figure is not great, but again, to get him for $15 is awesome. So very happy to finally add these guys to my collection after all these years. All right, we still have a few more to get through. Hopefully you're still with me here. So this is Slingshot. He is one of the aerial bots. I was just talking about the aerial bots and how they are basically a team of airplanes that form Superion, one of the combiners. So during the Combiner Wars storyline and toy line that was out around 2016 or so, the aerial bots, being one of the more popular combiner teams, Hasbro released these characters. And I was happy to get them. I was able to buy them all and complete Superion. But for whatever reason, with all of those Combiner Wars figures, they took out one of the original characters from the 80s and replaced them with a new character. And in the case of the aerial bots, they took out Slingshot and replaced him with a character named Alpha Bravo, who turned into a helicopter. Now, previously, the aerial bots never had a helicopter. So I bought Alpha Bravo, and he's a cool figure. He even kind of looks like Slingshot because he has an orange face like him and everything. And I was able to build my Superion. He is on my shelf right now. But it always kind of bothered me that why did they always replace one of the original characters? Was it just to annoy fans? Because I was certainly annoyed by it. Now, they did actually release a Slingshot in the same way that they released, the other missing characters from the other combiners, but they released them as store exclusives. Now, I was able to get some of the other ones, but I was never able to get the Slingshot. So for the past 10 years, I've had a complete set of aerial bots, but no Slingshot. And it always bothered me because he was like my favorite of the vintage aerial bots. But now, Hasbro is releasing a new version of Superion, as well as the other combiners, a few of the other ones at least. And so yeah, I was finally able to get this Slingshot. So this one doesn't quite match up with my other aerial bots from the Combiner Wars era, but at least now I finally have him. And since he's my favorite, it's kind of good that I get to display him in my collection just as a standalone guy, whereas my other aerial bots are all smashed together in order to make Superion, so it's almost like I don't have those characters. So I'm considering buying all of the new versions of the aerial bots so that I can have them on display, as individual characters and not combined. I don't know if I want to do that or not, because that could get expensive if I'm rebuying all of my combiners from the Combiner Wars years. Anyway, this Slingshot's great. I think it's better than the Combiner Wars one, so in some ways I'm glad I was never able to get that previous release. So yeah, it's pretty simple. Not a whole lot of deco or anything on this guy, but he looks good. He's got two double-barreled guns, and yeah, I like him. So anyway, there you go. That is Slingshot. So next up, I've got a retro card figure. This is Retro Card Gears. Now, I am not going to talk too much about him. At least I will try not to, because I feel I've spoken enough about this character recently that I don't want to sound like a broken record. But basically, Gears is my favorite Transformer. I loved the little teeny Gears figure that I had as a kid. He was about half the size of this. He was very simple as far as his transformation goes, but he looked a lot like this. And I just thought he was like a super cute little Transformer. And when I got rid of all my Transformers when I was like a teenager, Gears is like one of the 3 Transformers I kept just because I loved it so much. Anyway, when it comes to buying modern Transformers, I talked before about how Hasbro initially was really slow releasing the characters that we wanted. So obviously I wanted a nice new version of Gears. So I bought a couple different variations of him from third-party producers. So like this here is from a company called iGear, and I thought they did a really good job. This was basically the size of Gears that I wanted. He was finally bigger than the little one I had as a kid. He was bulky. I liked everything about this design. Sure, he's got a lot of kind of kibble hanging off the back of him and everything, but I still think it's a very strong figure. And so this has been my stand-in Gears in my collection for a long, long time. But then last year, we got a new version of Gears finally from Hasbro, and it's this one here, and I thought it was great. So again, it's basically the size that I wanted. I thought the colors were great. I thought the articulation was great. It's much better articulated than even this guy. You'll notice his face is different. That's because they went with the look from the comic books and the cartoon rather than the vintage toy. Oftentimes, the vintage toys didn't look like their cartoon counterparts. So, yeah, even though I grew up playing with the Gears that had a face like this, I really liked the one from the cartoon as well. So I thought this was a great figure, and I was very pleased with it. But right before I even had this one in hand, they announced that they were going to re-release this figure in what they call vintage toy colors, and with the vintage toy face. And so you see there are some color variations. He's got like the yellow on his chest. He's a much lighter, kind of a baby blue instead of this kind of navy blue. But yeah, so it's the same figure other than the paint scheme and the head. And I don't know, if I had to choose, I think I do prefer this head with the visor. I don't know. I really like this figure. I really liked this one too, but yeah, I'm really happy to have both of them. Let's just say that. So, very cool figure. I'm glad to see Gears is finally getting his due in the modern toy line. Very, very cool. But anyway, I've got a couple other retro card mini bots that I want to talk about. So, speaking of Transformers mini bots, this is Seaspray, the little transformer that turns into a hovercraft. Now, this is a vintage 80s transformer. When I was a kid, I didn't have Seaspray, but my brother did. This one I acquired later. But the Transformers back then, similar to the Combiner figures I showed you, like, I loved Transformers, the cartoon and the comic books, but then you get the toys, and I always found them a little disappointing because they're so hard to play with. I like them as action figures. I don't really care about the transformation. So sure, the transformation is easy. I can turn this guy into a hovercraft in about 5 seconds. But like his arms, they're so small little arms. He can't really fight. He doesn't have any elbows. His legs are stuck together. His feet are just one big hunk of plastic. He can't run. He can't do anything. So yeah, I always found the toys were a little disappointing back then. But yeah, to turn him into a hovercraft, it's basically boom, boom. Oh, there you go. Now he's a hovercraft. So that was Seaspray. Another Transformer mini-con from back in the day was Brawn. He was the same size, but he turned into a little green army jeep. Neither me or my brother ever had Brawn. But when I was building my modern Transformers collection, I wanted both of those characters, so I had to turn to third-party developers. This here is the Seaspray that I bought. So you can see he's recognizable as Seaspray. And he turns into a hovercraft pretty easily as well. And yeah, this guy, he has, look, you can bend his elbows. He has knees. His legs are separate. You can make him run. This was a pretty decent upgrade. I even like his little spear gun. That's kind of cool. This was a decent upgrade. It's almost like they took this toy and just improved it a little bit. But he was still a far cry from what I would call an awesome figure. Now, when it came to Brawn, this is the third-party version I bought. And I actually quite liked this one. So as far as the size and the bulk goes, this is what I prefer. I like to see my modern versions of the Minicons kind of blown up in size. Not too big, but similar to what we saw with Gears. You know, take them from mini to medium. And the coolest thing about this Brawn figure, now his name was actually Hench, because as I said earlier, they couldn't actually call him Brawn for legal reasons because they don't own the right to the character Brawn. So yeah, this toy was named Hench. But like the original Brawn toy, Brawn had this kind of visored face, which matched the vintage toy, similar to Gears. But then in the cartoons and the comic books, he had a more humanoid face. Now this toy here, you can actually spin his head around, and there you can see he's got the humanoid face, which is more like the cartoon behind it, which is, I thought, a very cool feature. Actually, the Gears figure that I showed you, the third-party one, did the same. So yeah, very, very cool. So I was happy with this guy in my collection as Brawn. I didn't care if I ever upgraded my Brawn figure. Now, in more recent years, I think this came out during Titan's Return, I got this Seaspray. Now, he is a little bigger. He's a little bulkier. He's officially licensed, so you know he definitely replaces this guy. And he does have, you know, knees, and he has elbows, and his legs are separate so he can move. So I thought this was a pretty good upgrade for Seaspray, and I was pretty content with him. They actually made a really nice new version of Brawn, but he just didn't do it for me. I thought this was better than the Brawn that they put out in their studio series. So I decided I would just hold on to this one. However, they just released some retro card versions of these guys. These are hot off the presses. I just got them like a week ago. So this here is the Brawn. So you can see this one is based on the vintage toy. It doesn't have the humanoid face. It's got the darker colors. But yeah, as far as size goes, this is a good height for Brawn. He's about the same as Hench, other than the fact that Hench has this kind of extra bit above his head. But yeah, he works out to be about the same bulk. And yeah, I really, really like it. So you can see the similarities here to Hench. But I really like that he's got the toy design. And so, as I mentioned earlier, usually when I get a new version like this, the older one gets boxed up. This one I don't think I'm going to box up, because I think I'm going to keep him on my shelf with the more humanoid face. And he can stay in my collection as the character Hench now. So I will pretend he's somebody totally unique. And this will be in my collection as Brawn, and they can coexist together. As for Seaspray, this one here, the Titan's Return one, this guy is going to get retired. He's going to go in the box because this guy is going to go on my shelf. This is the new retro card version of Seaspray, and you can see size-wise, he finally does the character justice. This is much bigger. It's to scale with the other mini-cons like Bumblebee and Cliffjumper, who have been upsized over the years. So yeah, I think he looks really cool. Definitely an improvement over the original. You know, knees, elbows, everything I would want in a Seaspray. A really nice deco. You know, no real hollow spots or anything on him. It's it's a really good figure. So pleased with these ones. Okay, we're in the final stretch here. These are the last Transformers that I have to show you today. And this is one of the reasons why it's taken me a long time to post a Transformers video. Because every time I get one, there's another one coming right behind them. And I think, well, I might as well wait till I get that next Transformer. In the case of this guy, this is Scrapper. He is one of the Constructicons that merged to form the combiner named Devastator. Now, I have all of the Constructicons from the Combiner Wars toy line from like 2016. And I have them on my shelf as Devastator. And he's been there for like the past 9 years. And he looks awesome. He's very big. He's very tall. Those figures actually all came in one big expensive box set. And I thought the individual characters were pretty poorly done. Like for modern Transformers, Like if you had them individual like this, they didn't have knees or elbows in a lot of cases. They were very stiff. It seemed like Hasbro put no effort into the individual characters because they knew everybody would just, combine them into Devastator anyway, so why bother put the extra tooling into the individual characters, which was kind of a bummer. But it didn't bother me that much because I was going to do just that. I was going to put them all as Devastator. I'm sure there are some people out there that maybe bought that set twice so they could display the Constructicons as their individual selves as well as their combined form. I did not have the money to do that, so I just have to deal with the fact that I've got a very cool Devastator, but I don't have any of the Constructicons represented in my collection, which was kind of a bummer because as a kid, I really liked the Constructicons, and I usually played with them as individuals because the original 1985 Devastator, you couldn't play with him really as a combined robot because he was so brittle. Like you couldn't; these figures didn't stick together very well. So when you tried to make him fight anybody, he'd split apart at the torso and his arms would fall off. So he was nice for like a little display purpose, but you couldn't really play with them. So for that reason, I always played with the Constructicons individually, and Scrapper was my favorite. I really liked his design just as a unique individual character. So when it was announced that they were going to do a new set of Constructicons, I was kind of excited because it meant I had another chance to buy these characters, and I didn't feel as guilty because they are new versions. If I had bought the 2016 set twice, I would have felt a little guilty about spending that much money to buy the exact same toys twice over. But since these are newly tooled figures, I don't have that same guilt. So I can keep my 2016 Devastator on my shelf, fully formed, but now Scrapper, who turns into a bulldozer, he can now be on my shelf as an individual, and this one is much better than the previously released one, because this guy actually has, elbows and knees. He can run, he can be posed into doing stuff, and I'm just happy to finally have these guys because they were such a key part of my vintage Transformers collection and my playtime as a kid that it always seemed a little weird to not have these guys on my shelf. But if I took apart my 2016 one, it would feel equally weird not to have Devastator because the combined form is really, that's the main event. That's what everybody wants to see when they come over. The Devastator is kind of a showstopper. He's a real signature piece. But anyway, now I have the best of both worlds. So Scrapper here looks great. Happy I got him. Next up, we have Bonecrasher. This guy turns into, what did I call him? He's a bulldozer, I think. He's a, what do you call him? I don't know. Well, let's call them both bulldozers. But this guy, it's a decent figure. It's not a great figure. I think this guy's really good. This guy, I wish he wasn't so green. Even if it's true to the vintage toy, I think it was easier to pull off on the smaller toys because the vintage ones were much smaller than this. But now that he's big, there's just way too much green going on here. And what Bulldozer would have bright green treads anyway. His legs should definitely be black or purple. They just shouldn't be green. There's way too much green. Also, I think the shovel on the front of his chest, the way that folds up, it kind of gives him breasts, which isn't great either. So I don't think this is a bad figure. Bonecrasher was never one of my favorite, Constructicons, and I wish they'd maybe taken the opportunity to make him a little bit cooler. But anyway, I'm glad I have them, but whatever. So these guys were both packaged as individual characters that cost me about, I don't know, I think $35 to $40. There's still two more Constructicons that haven't been released yet. Mixmaster and Scavenger. That's why I debated whether I should even review these guys now, because I thought, well, should I wait till I have all of them? But I'm doing it now anyway. I do, however, have the other two. These guys recently came out in a 2-pack. So here is Longhaul. He transforms into a dump truck. And this was another one of my favorites as a kid. So Scrapper, Longhaul, and Mixmaster. Those were my guys. The other three, less so. Anyway, he suffers from a little bit of the same problem as Bonecrasher in that he is very, very green. Thankfully, he's got black arms, which break it up a little bit. So it'd be fine if his legs were green and this was green, but I really wish like this torso piece here was black or silver or something, or purple. It's just, man, it's a lot of green. And yes, this guy looks a little chunky. You know, you could almost say he looks fat. But the one from 2016 was brutal. Like, he was really short and fat. He looked very weird. This is a big improvement over the 2016 version. Although I still wish they had found a way to make him not look like such a fatso. But anyway, it's a cool figure. I like it. And then we've got Hook. So this guy was in a 2-pack with Longhaul. Now this guy, he's got the right idea when it comes to color scheme. You can see how he matches Scrapper. Purple torso, silver legs. He's not so unbearably green. So it's a cool figure, and I like his head. It's very similar to Scrapper's, except he's got the like face, like the humanoid face, whereas Scrapper's just got the kind of face plate like Optimus Prime there. So yeah, these guys I think complement each other well. And yeah, he transforms into a crane truck. He's got this big crane on him here. Very cool. So I'm very happy to have these guys. I think it'll only be about maybe a month or two before I have the final 2 members of the Constructicon team, and I will be able to display them all standing around my Devastator, which is cool. Now, one thing that I don't necessarily love about these figures, but I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about it, is ideally, with any toy, I don't like them to come with a bunch of accessories that they can't hold on to. Sometimes my G.I. Joes come with way too many guns, and then I end up throwing them all in a spare parts bin. When it comes to Transformers, I like having, everything they need all in one compact figure. So even though I think this gun that he's carrying is a little ridiculous, it's probably not really intended for him to carry as an individual. This is his individual gun. This is more intended for when, he forms Devastator. I just threw it in his hand because I didn't want to have to throw it in a spare parts bin. So again, everything I need is handy. However, this 2-pack, it came with this big hunk, this big hunk of kibble. So now it does work as a trailer that Longhaul can pull. I gotta get this thing back on here. How'd that go? I think like so. Yeah, so you can see it's got like a tow cable here, and it's got wheels. So when Longhaul is a dump truck, you can attach this to him, and he can pull it along. But it really is a big chunk of extra stuff. That's pretty awkward. Like, I don't know what I'm going to have to throw this in my spare parts bin. I can't put this on my Transformers display as if it's supposed to be something, because it doesn't really look like anything. But yeah, what it actually is you can see these are Devastator's fists. This is what would be Devastator's kind of like crotch piece. So I understand why Hasbro does this. I think by adding these extra pieces, it will make Devastator sturdier. So it won't be like the vintage toy I had that falls apart whenever you touch him. So I do appreciate that. If I was going to build Devastator and play around with him or take some photos of him, it's nice to know that he's built tougher. But I wish they could have found a way to integrate this into these existing characters. Maybe even turn this into a 7th member of the Constructicons somehow. So if I could turn this chunk of green into a robot of his own, like, that would be very cool. But as it stands, it's just a big hunk of extra stuff that I don't have any use for, because I don't ever plan on turning these versions of the figures into Devastator, since I already have my Combiner Wars version. So anyway, I think that's all I've got to say. I've rambled on long enough. It's getting late. I want to go to bed. So let's wrap this up. Okay, so that was my review of my recent Transformers purchases. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me comments below, and stay tuned for the next video, which I think I might be shooting one this weekend with Chad. So come back for that one, and I'll see you then.